Aloha! Welcome to this week's video. So this week is part 2 of my Pahoa and sheath, and I will be finishing it up this week. So what I'm starting here is I'm putting on a second layer of tongue oil onto the blade. I'm layering it up on the blade just because it's going to be going in and out of the sheath, and that potentially can scratch it up. The koa wood on the blade is actually harder than the sheath, so I think it should be fine. But this will help keep it protected. And it does bring out the natural grain of the wood just a little bit more. The reason why I was wiping it down before was actually to buff it. Just using that cloth as a very fine buff and then oiling it again. The sheath has now set. I let it set for, I think it was 2 days. I didn't need it to sit for 2 days. 1 day was fine, but I was still working on other items. So I came back to it 2 days later. As you can see, it's pretty thick. The walls of the sheath are quite a bit thicker. Actually, I don't know. Would this be called a scubbard or a sheath? I'm not entirely sure. I think you can have a hard case sheath. I mean, I see those for knives all the time. I'm not sure what the difference is. But in any case, I'm going to be shaping this down. As I'm shaping it down, I'm kind of just testing it with the blade a little bit. I just want to make sure that I don't remove too much on the outside of the sheath in the event that the inside is too tight and I need to remove some from the inside. It's already holding pretty well, so it slides in and then it kind of locks in right at the end, which is awesome. Pretty much is functioning exactly like I want it. Before I go too far though, I'm going to go ahead and lash up the teeth. So I did decide to lash them up, and as you saw, if you saw the last video, I went ahead and tapped the teeth and put holes in the edge of the wood, and then I'm going to go ahead and lash it with this. What I did there, I don't know if you noticed, but I super glued the end of the lashing, and I do that just so that it acts as a needle and I can thread it through quite a bit easier. Once I have this finished lashing, I'll then test with the sheath again and see if it actually fits the way that I want it to, or if I need to remove some material from the inside of the sheath. The excess I just push into the holes, and so it kind of just cleans it up and makes it look a lot nicer. It did fit in. I did need to move just a little bit, so it's a little bit tighter than I'd like it to be, and I can see that it was kind of compressing on the lashing a little bit. And so I'm going to go ahead and clean up just this outside edge here, and get that a little bit wider so that hopefully this slides in and has a lot better feel. And it does fit pretty good. So now that I have that at a good position, here I'm just I'm kind of just testing to see how it'll feel, if it's on my right side, on my left side. Obviously there's different ways I can mount it. It is going to be a permanent mounting, and so I want to make sure that I get a good location for it. I'm right-handed, so I'll probably mount it to my left side, but in such a way that it can be kind of moved around and not be too bad. So I do want to put an inlay. So this is white and gold pearl shell. And the inlay that I want to put in are a triangle. So in Hawaiian, the triangle is the symbol of a shark's tooth, or a niho, which is a tooth. And so I'm going to be doing a pattern where you have the shark's tooth in a line, and it's going to go down. It symbolizes a few different things. It's a common pattern, but one of the common meanings of it is family. So I just traced out that template I had on a previous one that I'd made onto 3 pieces of material, ground those down on my grounder. I used that metal file to kind of flatten the edges, square it off, and now I'm going to be tracing it onto the wood using this marking knife. This is just a simple marking knife. I can't remember where I got it, but it works really well. I use this just to mark in my insets and inlays. The inlay here I'm going to be cutting in with my chisel set. I do want to be very careful not to gouge out, and so I'm actually cutting this in almost too early, and so I have to make the inlays deeper than I would normally. Normally I'd make the inlay pretty much just as deep as I need to be so that the pearl is perfectly flush. I won't be doing that with these. I'm actually, and you can kind of see how deep that inlay is. It's about 2 or 3 times as deep as the pearl is thick. And I'm doing that because I still have quite a bit of material to remove, and so that'll give me enough space to remove that material from the sheath and enable it to just come down flush with the pearl inlay, and I think that'll work out well. And then I just repeat this process for each one of the inlays. I'm going to be putting in 3 of these pearl inlays. I decided to follow the natural grain of the wood, so you can see this two-tone koa. It has a lighter outer wood, and then your edge wood, and then that darker inner wood or the heart wood, and that point of contrast. I decided to have the teeth follow that point of contrast. I just kind of liked it. I thought it looked really cool. Now that I have these cut out, I'm just going to be super gluing them in. The inlays I cut with pretty decent tolerance, so they kind of squeeze in anyway, and so the super glue is just going to help lock them into place. And then I'm going to obviously oil the whole piece after, which will also assist, because when I oil it, it's going to cause the wood grains to kind of expand just a little bit, which will tighten in on the inlays as well. I'm going to be sanding this whole piece down to 320, and then once I have it sand down to 320, I'm going to go ahead and oil it. I'm not going to oil it after I put on the whatever I use to connect the sheath to my pants. I'm going to be oiling it first. And this piece oiled it beautifully. So it's obviously a much lighter koa wood than the dagger, the Pahoa. But the contrast between the two-tone koa, the pattern niho, the teeth, and then the lighter koa that it's glued to, so the backside, just turned out really beautiful. I really enjoyed it. It's still a little bit thicker. I thought about bringing the walls down even more, but I was kind of concerned that it might be too fragile, and so I wanted it to be pretty stout. But then when testing it with the knife, oh, it's perfect. So I really like it. And you can see it still holds exactly the way that I want. So now that that is done, I'm going to go ahead and let the sheath sit overnight, and then I'm going to come back and attach the clip. So what I've been thinking about this clip the entire time. I wasn't sure what I wanted to use. What I ended up doing is I ordered this. This is a holster clip. Now it has these screws that thread into like a hold. I wanted to drill all the way through and have that hold go through. The problem though is the other end of that hold sticks out too far, and so I'd have to cut down more of the sheath on the inside. If I had done this before I glued the sheath together, then I potentially could have used a countersink on the other side, the inside of the sheath, but it's kind of too late for that. So what I'm doing there is I'm just figuring out which bit fits these screws perfect. I want the hole to be small enough that I have to thread the screw in, but big enough that I can thread it in. So I found the bit that works, and then I'm just marking where I'm going to be putting that on there. You noticed I did it at an angle, and I did that just because I was testing kind of holding it against my side, and that was what gave the best, most comfortable feel. So I'm going to kind of pre-thread just the first section of these in just to make sure that they're at a good depth, and they do thread in pretty much exactly the way that I want them to. And so now that I have them threaded in, I'm not going to put them all the way through because I'm a little worried that I might cause damage to the wood, and so I don't want to strip out the threading. So now I have that in. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up, and then I'm adding a little bit of super glue to the inside of the hole just to hopefully lock the threads in place with the koa wood. So here is the finished piece, although I can't really test it with my shorts because they don't hold on very well, and so I'm going to be doing, a better test, obviously, and a closer look. So here is the finished piece inside of my shed. I did have fun with this quite a bit. I'm going to be testing with this on my ballistics gel, and I'll get to that here in just a minute. But you can really see the beautiful contrast in koa wood. I actually do like the way that the holster clip looks on the sheath. I don't know, maybe it's the modern and old. I think it looks pretty cool. If you like it, if you don't like it or you do like it, let me know in the comments below. I thought it worked out pretty well. But let's go ahead and head outside and test with this piece. So I just have my regular setup. My ballistic gel is just mounted to this. That just keeps it in place. So I'm going to be trying a forehand strike, a backhand strike, and then a drag across or a slice. But look at that. I love how that just sits in the sheath. It's so awesome. That was a pretty nasty cut. It's a good 1.5 inches on both sides. So this would definitely cut open. I mean, little to no resistance on that strike. Obviously, you know, the wide body of the koa wood prevents it from going too deep, but it does just slice right through. So that was the backhand strike, and it pretty much did the exact same amount of damage. A good 1.5 inches on both sides, and then a cut straight through. Worked pretty awesome. And then here's the pull through or drag. I'm not sure what you would call this strike. I just wanted to see if I could cut it all the way through. And sure enough, I was able to drag it all the way through. It was actually deeper on the corners and then a little bit shallower in the center, but it still went through about 3/4 to 1 inch all the way across. So that'd be a pretty insane cut. So the blade works perfectly, exactly the way that I wanted it to. And then here are the close-ups in the natural light, as well as the holster. I love this thing. I wanted to make a knife. I guess it's not a holster, it's a sheath. But I wanted to make a pahoa where I had a sheath so that you could carry it with you. And this has just worked out absolutely beautifully. I love the curly koa on the blade. It just looks gorgeous. The overall look of it, how it feels in my hand, and obviously how it fits in the sheath. The function of the sheath is exactly as I was expecting it and hoping it to be. The entire piece fits in nice, and the teeth do not come in contact with the wood. So you can see there the teeth is kind of lifted, and so when you slide the blade in and out, it doesn't damage or strike the teeth against the koa at all. And then there's the clip and the finished overall piece. Well, mahalo everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave me a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Mahalo.